With respect to Exhibit P-TR-1100 and P-TR-361, I didn't want to be unfair to Mr. Edson. I should mention that he did make an argument at the end related, and not at the end, his argument that he made that I forgot to mention a moment ago is that these items were relevant because they're probative of the issues raised by the not guilty by reason of insanity plea. And my ruling was that to the extent that that's what he's relying on for purposes of relevance, I found that under Rule 403, the probative value of the evidence was substantially outweighed by the danger for unfair prejudice. And that's because these are gun or ammunition type items that, as far as I could tell before I ruled, had nothing to do with the shooting and or the items found in his apartment. So, all right, in terms of the video that the parties argued about right before the lunch break, Mr. Orman, do the people want to respond to the assertion with respect to 404B? Ms. Higgs added that, I don't know if you were in the courtroom, she added that after the lunch break, that in addition to Rules 401 and 403, she was also relying on Rule 404B for her position.
I think I was meeting with a witness when that argument was made, but Your Honor, this is a sanity case, and this is not a prior bad act offered as character evidence or anything like that. What this is the actions of the defendant that are directly relevant to sanity, and they are relevant directly under 401 and 402, and they do not depend upon any type of 404B analysis. So I don't think 404B applies.
All right, thank you. I agree. You know, if all we had was this video, P-TR-1089, I might see more merit with the defense's position. And I might have been concerned enough to keep this out. But the truth is that the defense intends to use some video of the defendant in jail. And you can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, the video that we like or that we think is favorable is okay, but other video that we find unfavorable is not okay. The video that the people find favorable to them, they want to admit. That's not surprising. And so the defense, as Mr. Orman stated in his argument, played some excerpts of a jail videotape of the defendant. Ms. Higgs, I think, argued that P-TR-1089 is incomplete because it's only 11 minutes long and it doesn't show all of the time that the defendant was at the particular holding cell on the date in question. But the reality is that all of these video clips are necessarily incomplete. If we wanted to make them complete, truly complete, we'd have to show the jury almost 3 years worth of jail videotapes. I mean, we couldn't do that. We would be here forever. So by definition, you're going to have to show excerpts if you're going to show any part of a video recording. The defense's videos are going to be excerpts as well. And I'm talking about the jail videotapes. They're going to be clips as well. They're not complete either. So again, to the extent that the defense's videos are okay, even though they're excerpts, then the people's videos are okay, even though they're excerpts. And again, I'm referring to the jail videos. In terms of the relevance and the Rule 401, I find that the video is relevant to the issues raised by the plea of not guilty by reason of insanity and the culpable mental state elements of the offenses charged. The video goes to the defendant's capacity to distinguish right from wrong and to the defendant's capacity to form the culpable mental state elements of the offenses charged. I know that this is a video taken after the shooting. It was taken in September. I get that. But there has been an assertion here that the defendant's condition after the fact, after the shooting, including as late as November 2012, is relevant to the issues raised by the insanity defense. And all of this precedes the time when the defendant was placed on antipsychotic medication. The November incident that the defense relies on precedes the defendant being placed on medication and antipsychotic medication, and the People's incident in September of 2012 precedes the defendant being placed on medication as well, antipsychotic medication. The experts have relied on videotape of the defendant at the jail. Both Doctors Reed and Metzner reviewed video of the defendant at the jail. This was video that was provided by the parties. The defense, I think, provided video of the November incident to Dr. Reed. And both of them have discussed the defendant's behavior after the fact in support of their opinions on the issue of sanity. I agree that this is not evidence of another act or transaction governed by Rule 404B. If it were, then the defense's video would be too. Again, you can't, you have to be, I have to be consistent. I have to be uniform, and I have to look at both types of videos in the same way. If you have a video of the defendant in jail in September and a video of the defendant in jail in November, I can't say, well, the one in September is subject to Rule 404B, but the one in November is not, just because one is favorable to one party and the other one is favorable to the other party. It doesn't work like that. As Mr. Orman said, this is an insanity case, and this evidence is not being admitted as evidence of character. It's being admitted for purposes of the issues that are raised by the insanity defense. To the extent that there is any potential prejudice by the video, and Ms. Higgs indicated that this video has the potential to violate the defendant's Eighth Amendment because it's like rebutting a mitigator that has not been presented. In other words, it could be seen as going to his future dangerousness. It's not being introduced to show the defendant's future dangerousness. It's being introduced for the limited purpose of the issue, considering the issues raised by the insanity defense. And so I will give the jury an instruction similar to the instruction I gave them when Dr. Reed testified, when Dr. Metzner testified, and when we showed the videotaped interview of the defendant by Dr. Reed. Unless the defense tells me that it doesn't want that instruction, that's what I'll plan to do. And I will tell the jury that it cannot consider this evidence for any other purpose. So I find that this is relevant under Rule 401, and I find that the probative value of the evidence is not substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice or any of the concerns listed in Rule 403. Therefore, I conclude that Exhibit P-TR-1089 is admissible, but I will give the instruction that I mentioned a moment ago. And the party should remind me to give it before it is played, please. In terms of the second objection, Mr. Orman said that he is not intending to elicit any testimony that P-TR-1089 was kept for safety, officer safety purposes. And so that request is granted without objection. And Mr. Orman, if for some reason you change your mind, you need to ask to approach the bench, and then we'll take it up at the bench conference. But I agree with Ms. Higgs that that testimony should not come in. And there, I think the probative value of that testimony is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice, and that is excludable under Rule 403. But as I said, the people don't have any objection to the request, so it is granted without objection. In terms of the jail records, I reviewed the jail records over the lunch hour, and I think Mr. Orman provided an accurate description of its content, or their contents, I should say. To the extent that the objection is as to hearsay, the objection is overruled because these are statements by a party opponent, admissions by a party opponent, and so the statements by the defendant and most of the statements in this exhibit are by the defendant. Those statements are not hearsay. To the extent that there are statements by other people, the statements are not hearsay because they're not being introduced for the truth of the matter asserted. they're being introduced simply to place the defendant's statements in context and to make the defendant's statements intelligible. And I will give the jury that limiting instruction unless the defense tells me that it doesn't want me to give that instruction. And I would ask the parties to please remind me to give that instruction when those records are admitted. In terms of the relevance of the records, they are relevant for all the reasons that I have been stating throughout the trial, and I specifically incorporate by reference my ruling on People's Exhibit P-TR-1227 from last week. These are writings by the defendant, and I think they're admissible. I think these kites is what they're called, go to the issues raised by the insanity defense and the culpable mental state elements of the offenses charged. Again, I understand that these are after the fact, they're after the shooting. They take place when the defendant is in custody, but as I said, the defense there's an argument in this case that period of time after the shooting and before the defendant was medicated is relevant to the issues raised by the insanity defense. I believe, if I understood Dr. Reed's testimony correctly, that the defense provided him the defendant's other writings at the jail, including a poem I think that the defendant wrote and some other writings from the defendant. And Dr. Reed questioned the defendant about that and relied in part on those writings informing his opinions. And of course, Dr. Reed is one of the two court-appointed sanity examiners in this case. Once again, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say, well, these writings of the defendant while he's in jail are okay, but these other writings are not okay. These writings, you can't say either these writings go to the insanity defense, but these other writings do not. I don't see it that way, and I don't think it works that way. I think that they are relevant to the issues that I raised by the insanity defense and relevant to the culpable mental state elements of the offenses charged. In general, the kites reflect the defendant's ability to communicate, to interact, to understand information, to assess his surroundings, and to express himself in a coherent, logical, reasonable, and appropriate manner. Does that mean that by themselves they show that the defendant was sane on the date of the shooting? No, but they're relevant to those issues that are raised by the insanity defense. And the probative value of the evidence is not substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice or by any of the other concerns listed in Rule 403. So for all those reasons, I find that the jail records are admissible as well. What is the exhibit number on the jail records? Is it P-TR-1088?
That's right, Your Honor.
All right, so that exhibit is also admissible.
Honor, may I approach with Mr. Brockler briefly?
Yes. Are the parties ready for the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defense ready?
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring the jury in, please. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury is back in the courtroom. Mr. McGinley, I remind you that you're still under oath.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Edson, you may resume your direct examination of Mr. McGinley.
Sir, were you the individual in the brown vest in that video?
Yes.
A couple of quick questions. First of all, there were a lot of different angles of camera shots. One appeared to have kind of a far-off view. There wasn't a lot of people up front, but kind of a far-off view. What was going on in that far-off view? Do you recall?
I'm guessing another sales associate was probably helping someone else at the case.
So this video took a little bit of time. One thing I want to ask you is, based on this video and your experience with Gander Mountain, does it sometimes take time for firearm transactions to go through?
Yes, it does.
Why is that?
It's variable on the flow of customers, number of employees working, but also how long it takes CBI to return their decision on the background check.
We saw you pull some what appeared to be firearms from a shelf behind you. What were you doing there?
The first interaction or
Yes.
I think that particular case, it's been a while, were...
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
Sir, let me instruct you as follows.
Okay.
You cannot speculate.
Okay.
So if you don't remember, you can't guess.
Okay, I understand.
If you remember, then you can answer the question.
Okay. I don't remember what guns were the first.
The rifles that are actually sold to customers, are they the floor models?
They can be, yes.
The amount of time that it took for us to watch this video, is that common or uncommon for an amount of time that it may take for a transaction for the purchase of a rifle to take?
It's common.
Based upon your observations in the video, and particularly the last scenes of walking that individual out of the store, did it appear that this was a successful transaction?
Yes.
Why do you say that?
He had passed the background check. We had done all the paperwork. We rang him through our system to charge him out. I had a second check on the paperwork. And at that point, all of our protocol is met, and we walked the customer out.
Just can I have one moment, please?
Yes.
I have nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
Ms. Higgs, do you have any cross-examination?
I do not, thank you.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions. May Mr. McKinley be released from his subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor.
Without objection.
Thank you. Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
Angela Pella.
Good afternoon. Could I have you raise your right hand for me so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm on the penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name for the record and spell your first, middle, and last names?
It is Angela Jolene Pella, Angela Joleen Pella.
Mr. Edson, you may proceed.
How are you employed?
I am the operations manager at the Bass Pro Shops.
Where are the Bass Pro Shops located in the metro area?
Oh, we actually just have one store. It is up on Stapleton. It is the 7970 Northfield Boulevard.
What is your roles as an operation manager?
As operations manager, I do a lot of different things. I am in charge of maintenance of the building, customer service, overall in the building. I also deal with loss prevention type situations. I also deal with record keeping for record retention, for things for the restaurant, for the entire store, and for our boat department.
Are you a records custodian for Bass Pro Shops?
Yes, I am.
Is there also a name associated with that store called Outdoor World?
Yes.
How is that involved?
So it is either referred to as Bass Pro Shops or Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World.
Are you familiar with view transaction documents?
Yes, I am.
Are you also familiar with sales receipt from your Bass Pro Shop store?
Yes.
Are you familiar with how to generally read them as far as transactions and dates and things of that nature?
Yes.
Could I please have People's Exhibit 4499? It's already been admitted. Scroll down here just a little bit. First of all, this we have on our screen People's Exhibit 4499. Do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
What is this?
This is a sales receipt.
Is this from your store?
Yes, it
The
is.
store that you're the operations manager for?
Yes.
We'd scroll down here just a little bit. What appears to be sold with this receipt?
It looks as though there is a Remington 870 shotgun, as well as some ammo and a couple other things.
We could scroll down a bit more for us, please. Is there a particular payment method on this receipt?
Yes, there was a MasterCard used with the last four digits ending in 2217.
And obviously the total is $469.18. Is that fair?
Yes.
If we could scroll down to the bottom, please. What was the date and time of this particular transaction?
This transaction was May 28th of 2012 at 1840.
At store 34, are you familiar with that?
That is the Bass Pro Shops Outdoor World in Denver.
Thank you. Are you familiar with the video surveillance system at Bass Pro Shops?
Yes, I am.
Do you actually pull any video from time to time related to video surveillance?
Yes, I do.
Is that part of your job to assist law enforcement?
Yes, it is.
Is it also part of your job to review surveillance video when requested to do so?
Yes.
Fair to say you're familiar with the location, physical location, but as well as the store layout of your particular location?
Yes.
At some point after July 20th, 2012, were you contacted by law enforcement related to the events surrounding the shooting at the Century 16 Theater in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes, I was.
Without getting into any specific statements in general, what was requested of you?
I was actually requested of the entire DVR system that held the video from the dates correlating any purchases relating to this case would be pulled and confiscated.
Did you in fact do that?
Yes, I did.
Did you comply with law enforcement's request?
Yes, we did.
Had you reviewed that video before you provided it to law enforcement?
Yes, I did.
Does that include a video from July 6, 2012?
Yes, it does.
Did you also provide law enforcement with a view transaction record from July 6, 2012?
Yes, I did.
I may have asked you this, and I apologize if I have. What is a view transaction?
A view transaction is just the electronic version of all of the receipts. So when a customer gets a printed receipt, those are backed up on a server, and we can access that server through the electronic journal system.
Is that the electronic information something you are familiar with for your role with Bass Pro Shops?
Yes, very familiar.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness, please?
Yes?
I've handed you two different items. One is People's Exhibit 1246. The other is People's Exhibit 357. First of all, People's Exhibit 357, are you familiar with that item?
Yes, I am.
What is that?
That is the video clips of the time frame that Mr. Holmes was at the gun counter at the Bass Pro Shops in Denver.
Is that the copy of the video that you actually pulled from Bass Pro Shops?
Yes, it is.
Did you view that particular exhibit?
Yes, I did.
How do you know you viewed that exhibit?
I have viewed it, I viewed it before it was handed over to police, and then I also viewed it again a couple of times after that time period.
Is there any sort of markings on People's Exhibit 357 that you recognize?
Yes, I initialed and dated on 1/12 of 2015.
Do the contents of People's Exhibit 357 fairly and accurately depict the video surveillance related to July 6, 2012 from the Bass Pro Shops?
Yes, they do.
You could take a look at People's Exhibit 1246. Do you see that?
Yes.
What in general is that exhibit?
That is the electronic journal reprint of the receipt from July 6th of 2012.
Does that particular view transaction document from 1246, does that correlate to the surveillance video that you observed in People's Exhibit 357?
Yes, it does.
Is in fact that the transaction related to People's Exhibit 357?
Yes, it is.
Are you familiar with the creation and the maintenance of the view transaction records such as People's Exhibit 1246?
Yes, I am.
Is that a computerized entry?
No, it is not.
Are they computerized documents? People's Exhibit 1246, the view transaction.
It is computer generated, yes.
Are the computer entries contained within People's Exhibit 1246 made in the regular course of Bass Pro Shops business?
Yes, they are.
Those who participate in making the view transaction record in People's Exhibit 1246, are they acting in the routine course of Bass Pro Shops business?
Yes, they are.
The input procedures that are used to create People's Exhibit 1246, are they accurate?
Yes, they are.
The entries within People's Exhibit 1246, are they made within a reasonable time after the actual transaction?
Yes, they are.
How do you know that?
They are instantaneous after a transaction has been completed in the system. Instantaneously, you can then go to the electronic journal system and pull up that transaction.
Is that something you've done in the past in your job?
Yes, it has.
Is that something you actually did in this case?
Yes, it is.
And does that reflect exactly what you have there before you in People's Exhibit 1246?
Yes, it is.
The information contained within People's Exhibit 1246, has it been transmitted by a reliable person such as yourself who has knowledge of these particular records?
Yes.
The information in People's Exhibit 1246, is that information kept and maintained in the course of Bass Pro Shops' regularly conducted business practice?
Yes, it is.
The information contained in People's Exhibit 1246, is that information that Bass Pro Shops regularly receives, maintains, and relies upon in maintaining their customer transaction records for Bass Pro Shop?
Yes, it is.
Is there a particular phone number associated with People's Exhibit 1246?
Yes, there is.
What is that phone number?
It is 858-449-7348.
Is there a particular method of payment, or form of payment, I should say, contained within People's Exhibit 1246?
Yes, there was a Visa card ending in 8522 that was actually charged for $1,149.24.
Was there another form of payment that was attempted to be used on that particular transaction?
Yes, there was a MasterCard ending in 2217 that was attempted to be used twice, but then voided of payment because it did not have sufficient funds.
And the date of People's Exhibit 1246, what is that?
Is 7/6 of 2012.
Judge, at this time, I would move for admission of People's Exhibit 1246 and 357.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly.
Okay, why don't you approach? The objection is overruled. Both exhibits are admitted. That's P-TR-1246 and P-TR-357, and both of them may be published.
Judge, can I approach the witness, please?
You may.
Could I please have People's Exhibit 1246? Can you tell us, please, what were the items that were purchased on July 6, 2012?
There are a few different items. There is a Glock handgun, some ammunition, I believe that there is a bore sighter, and some cleaning supplies, a couple other items.
If we could just scroll down to the little bit further there. Explain to us, it's pretty self-explanatory, but just for the record, what are we looking at here as far as the payment method and the various types of attempts of payment?
So the line where it has MasterCard ending in 2217 off to the right has the amount of $1,149.24. Underneath that is voided. That's because it was declined for payment, and that happened twice.
Okay. Ultimately, was this a successful transaction?
Yes, it was.
What was the total amount of this transaction?
Was $1,149.24.
Judge, can I have one moment, please?
Yes.
I have nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Any cross-examination?
Just very briefly. Ma'am, you were not present for this transaction, is that correct?
I was not, I did not have one-on-one contact, no.
Okay, thank you.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
And the jury does not appear to have any questions for this witness. May this witness be released from her subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Call your next witness, please.
Brian Pennington. This is the last one.
Good afternoon. Could I have you raise your right hand for me so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Please be seated. Please tell us your full name for the record and spell your first, middle, and last name.
Brian Wayne Pennington, Brian Wayne, Pennington, Pennington.
Mr. Edson.
Thank you. Sir, are you familiar with Bass Pro Shops?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to direct your attention to July 6, 2012. Were you employed by Bass Pro Shops?
Yes, sir.
What was your job title?
I sell guns at the gun counter, so just gun salesman.
At some point after July 20th, 2012, were you contacted by any member of law enforcement with some questions related to the events at the Century 16 Theater back in July of 2012?
Yes, sir.
At some point, were you shown a video of a transaction from July 6, 2012?
Yes, sir.
Did you view that video?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness, please?
You may.
I've handed you what's been previously introduced into evidence as People's Exhibit 357. Do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
It's a video.
Did you view that video?
Yes.
How do we know that?
So I initialed it and dated it.
What is it a video of?
The transaction,
Was this a transaction from July 6, 2012?
correct.
Was this for a sale of a Glock handgun as well as some other items?
Yes, sir.
Did you see yourself on this video?
Yes,
Were you actually an associate that facilitated this particular transaction?
correct.
Before we publish this, I have a couple of additional foundational questions for you. Explain to the jury in general, what is the process when someone comes to you and wants to purchase something like a Glock handgun? How does that happen?
An individual comes to the gun counter and looking for a firearm, so as a salesman, we find out what they want to buy a gun for, what their individual needs are, if it's for hunting or for fun or, protection. Once the individual establishes a firearm they want to buy, we follow through with a background check. That's a 4473.
How do you do the background check?
They have to have the correct address on the front of their license, and we type it in online. It's a federal document, 4473. The customer fills out their portion, and then we fill out our portion.
Is this the same procedure that you use for every firearm transaction?
That's correct.
Does it sometimes take a little bit of time to facilitate a firearm transaction?
Yes.
Explain for the jury what you mean by that.
Everybody's different. It could take 10 to 15 minutes. It could take 45 minutes to an hour to fill out a background check.
What are you generally waiting on?
Once the customer fills out their part, we put in their portion of the driver's license, and then we put it in online. We're waiting for the approval from CBI.
At some point, once the time has occurred for the background check to go through, let's assume that it's an approved transaction, what happens next?
So it's put into a pending folder until it's approved. Once it's approved, then it's printed out and put in the approved spot. And any one of us could pick up the form and proceed. It could take a while for the approval. I've seen as low as 3 minutes and as long as 3 days.
Would you move forward on a transaction if it came back not to be approved?
If it came back not approved,
Yeah.
then there's a process for that as well.
Okay. Fair to say you're familiar with how to finalize the sale as far as method of payments and ringing up credit cards and things of that nature?
That's correct.
Do you specifically recall this transaction from July 6, 2012?
No.
Do you recall any aspect about the cards used and some being declined? Do you recall anything about that?
After watching the video, I do remember it now. But
Okay.
he did.
Explain to us about that.
The time of the purchase, the first credit card was denied. And the individual, I gave him back his card, and we used a different credit card.
Did you actually see yourself doing that on the video?
Yes,
You recognize that that was a declined process?
yes.
What happened then?
As soon as the individual had a proper form of payment, we proceeded on with my manager signing off on the paperwork.
Ultimately, based upon your review of People's Exhibit 357, was this a successful transaction?
Yes,
Is there any policy or procedure from Bass Pro about escorting individuals who have purchased firearms?
at this time, we did have a procedure to walk the individual out.
And did that occur in this case?
Yes,
At this time, I would ask to publish People's Exhibit 357.
How long is this exhibit?
It's about 27 minutes.
Okay. Do you want me to dim the lights?
Judge, I'm sorry, would the court allow me to ask a few questions while the video is playing, just to orient the jury where we're looking at?
Okay, if there's an objection, make it and I'll rule.
Your Honor, we would object. I think the video speaks for itself. We'd object to any sort of narration of the video as it's going on.
Well, he's not requesting to narrate, he's asking or requesting to ask questions, so go ahead.
Thank you. Sir, what are we looking at from this camera angle?
From this particular angle, just customers are looking at firearms. I'm the salesman on the right, behind the gun counter. Showing handguns right now.
Okay. Sir, next question. Do you see an individual in, it appears to be a tan shirt and a tan hat, really kind of hard to see up at the top corner? Do you see that?
Yes,
Is that the individual associated with this transaction?
yes.
It calls for speculation. He already testified that he doesn't remember this transaction.
Sir, you can't speculate. You can only testify to what you know or what you remember. So was that speculation or was that based on your knowledge? Sir?
Speculation.
All right, then the objection is sustained and the answer is stricken, and the jury will disregard it and will treat it as though it never heard it.
Judge, can I rephrase?
Well, he just said it was speculation. You can ask a different question if you want.
The individual in the hat and the tan shirt's kind of out of view now, just at the bottom of the screen, just coming into view. Is that the individual that was associated with the declined transactions that you previously testified to?
Yes,
Also calls for speculation.
All right, same cautionary instruction. Can you answer the question without speculating?
yes,
All right, then if you can answer it based on your actual recollection, then go ahead and answer it.
yes. The answer is still yes.
So the individual that was declined a couple of times, as you previously testified to with you, did he just now move to place some items on the counter?
Yes.
Sir, at this portion of the video, which is 1828, do you see yourself in this video?
Yes, sir.
Are you interacting with the individual who had the previously twice declined MasterCard?
That is correct.
22 minutes and 13 seconds. What part of the store are you at right now?
This is upstairs of the gun counter in the hunting department.
Which specific part of the counter are you at?
Cash register.
Are you ringing the sale up at this point?
That's correct.
At 24:55, it appears you moved a computer screen. If you know, what's going on there?
This was indicating that the credit card was declined.
Okay, the record should reflect the people just finished playing P-TR-357. Do you have any other questions for Mr. Pennington?
Yes, Your Honor. So that last clip, was that you escorting the customer out with the purchase?
That's correct.
I have nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
Is there any cross-examination?
Your Honor, if I can just have a minute.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Do you still have the exhibits up there with you? Is there any paperwork up there?
Do not.
Okay. No, I don't need the video. Your Honor, may I approach, please?
Yes.
I'm going to approach and show you a document. It's People's Exhibit 1246. Can you take a look at that? Now, there's nothing on that document that indicates the actual time of that transaction. Is that correct? Just the date, right?
I do not see a time, no.
Okay. Fair to say that when you look at that video, there's a bit of graininess to it. Would you agree with me on that?
A little bit, yes.
In fact, the first time that you looked at that video with the FBI, you kind of initially at least had a difficult time identifying even yourself on that video. Is that right?
No,
You don't recall that?
I do not recall that.
You don't recall talking with FBI agent Feltz on July 23rd of 2012 and reviewing that video with him?
I do
Actually, it
re-
was July 26th of 2012?
I do recall that. I can point myself out pretty quickly, though.
Okay, you don't recall indicating to Sergeant Feltz initially when you started watching the video that you thought it might be you, but you weren't sure, and you had to watch for a while to make sure it was yourself?
I do not recall that.
Okay. Additionally, in the video, it's difficult to see the specific items that are purchased just looking at it on the video. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And so what I'm kind of getting is that, well, is it also fair to say that when you watch the video, you're kind of inferring what happened based on what you're seeing on the video when we're talking about the actual transaction and showing him the computer screen?
Can you please repeat the question?
I can, yes, absolutely. You don't recollect this specific transaction, but when you watch the video, you kind of inferred that there must have been a declined credit card based on your actions of showing him the video screen.
That is correct.
Okay.
Because I would never show the screen to anybody other than a declined credit card.
Okay. And that's sort of the circumstance that is linking you to this transaction, that there was a declined credit card. Is that right?
Correct.
And I understand that, it looks to me like on the video that your job selling weapons at that store could be fairly busy. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Okay. And there are times that people's credit cards are declined.
It's very rare, but it does happen.
It does happen. And you don't have any independent memory if there was another customer in the store that day that had a credit card declined at this point in time?
I do not.
Okay. The only other thing I wanted to ask you about, and I don't know if you can tell, do you recall whether that person that you were working with on that day was wearing sunglasses, or was that just a shadow under the hat? Do you have a memory?
Must be a shadow.
Okay, you don't recall them wearing sunglasses?
We're not allowed to.
Do you recall the person having red hair?
Do not recall.
Thank you for your time. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
Do you have any redirect, Mr. Edson?
No, Your Honor.
And there do not appear to be any questions from the jury. May this witness be released from his subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there any objection?
No, sir, there's not.
All right, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the jury, it's almost 5 o'clock, so let's go ahead and adjourn for the day. Please remember all my advisements related to your conduct when you're not present in the courtroom. They all apply tonight and overnight. And get some rest, and I'll see you tomorrow at the usual time, okay? Thank you. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom. Right before the last break, I spoke about P-TR-352, and I think I misstated something, and I had misstated something before when I ruled at the bench on that exhibit. I think I said that Mr. Edson had not established requirement number 5 listed in Marciano, which is that the information was transmitted by a reliable person with knowledge of the event reported. And I think Mr. Edson cited Marciano as well, and so I think we were both looking at Marciano. But I don't believe that that exhibit was a computer-generated electronic business record. So I'm not sure that my ruling in that regard was accurate. However, my ruling in terms of Mr. Edson failing to establish foundation that there was a business relationship between Gander Mountain and the defendant, as well as Gander Mountain and CBI, my ruling as to that stands. And I rely on Glover, which I cited before, 2015 Westlaw 795690, and people in the interest of RDH 944 Pacific 2nd 660, Colorado Court of Appeals case from 1997, which was quoted in Glover. And I also continue to rely on the concerns that I expressed in terms of whether the people had the right witness to testify with respect to that record in terms of having it admitted under the business records exception to the hearsay rule. I don't know that Ms. Rodriguez was, I don't believe that Ms. Rodriguez was an appropriate witness to lay the necessary foundation for that record. So my comments with respect to that also stand, but I wanted to correct the one statement because this was not a computerized record. All right, is there anything that we need to talk about? I guess we need to address the request to strike that's outstanding. Is there anything else that you want to say with respect to that? Ms. Higgs or Mr. Edson?
Judge, I would have a moment, please.
Yes. And this was a request to strike part of the testimony of Mr. Barbarak.
And this is in relation to the questions that pertain to the surveillance video, which is People's Exhibit 358 from the June 7, 2012 transaction, is my recollection. Correct, Judge?
That's correct, and it was subsequently admitted through, I think it was Mr. McKinley, the next witness.
So my first statement, Judge, is I think it is moot now at this point that the evidence has been admitted and authenticated by Mr. McGinley and published to the jury. But I would direct the defense to discovery pages 3315 as well as 3323. And here's the the connection through Officer Dave Gallegos that I was attempting to state to the court on the bench. First of all, as acknowledged by counsel, the July 1st, 2012 exhibit, that was Exhibit 361, that was not admitted by the court. That one was specifically referred to in page 3323 about the videotape being in existence for July 1st, 2012, and that Andrew Barrowback, the senior manager loss prevention for Gander Mountain, had arranged for that release of that particular exhibit of that particular date, July 1st, 2012. Here's how we get to the June 7th, 2012, in which Mr. Barrowback is involved as well. The Special Agent Abraham from the FBI had contacted and had arranged consensual release of the DVD recorders that were referenced by Andrew Barrowback in his testimony, and the hard drives through Alan Tagg, T-A-G-U-E, who is a vice president of loss control for Gander Mountain. He works with Mr. Barrowback, is my understanding. And specifically referring to 3323 of discovery, when it was determined that Special Agent Abraham had informed Officer Dave Gallegos from the Aurora Police Department that a video did exist in relation to the date in question, and that it was to be released on July 24th related to that. Now, going to page 3315, Abraham also advised Officer Gallegos that there was a video had existed, or was in existence, for the June 7th, 2012. And what had happened is that he being Officer Gallegos, had contacted Alan Tagg to arrange the release of those additional DVD recorders. Mr. Tagg was on vacation, so Officer Gallegos left a message for Mr. Barrowback in his absence, specifically referring to the June 7th, 2012 video. Although Mr. Barrowback did not contact Officer Gallegos directly, what happened was Officer Gallegos responded to the Gander Mountain location. Upon arrival, he talked with duty manager Joe Lopez, who I referred to at the bench, and Mr. Lopez had been advised and contacted by Mr. Barrowback that Officer Gallegos was on his way to pick up the DVD recorders related to that particular transaction. So it's a convoluted connection, but that's the connection that people were relying upon, Judge.
Well, I agree that it's convoluted, Mr. Edson, but anything else at this time, Ms. Hayes?
Your Honor, I also had an opportunity to review that report. I think it's very convoluted and quite a stretch to say that there's any evidence there that Mr. Barborak collected or gave over the DVDs or the security video that we had discussed at the bench on the other dates. I don't have anything else to add.
All right. I'm satisfied that there has been no Rule 16 violation. It is convoluted, but it's there. And I think the inferences are reasonable and that the inferences could have been drawn by any attorney. The prosecution doesn't have to connect all the dots for defense counsel. And what they have to do is discover the material that they intend to introduce into evidence, and they need to they're required to endorse witnesses, and they're required to let the defense know what the witnesses in general are going to testify about. And all of that happened here with respect to the surveillance tape on June 7th of 2012, and with respect to Mr. Barborak and the connection between the two. So there's been no discovery violation. There's no prejudice to the defense that the prosecution didn't specify that Mr. Barborak himself might be the witness who establishes the foundation for the admission of the surveillance tape, or that he might be asked questions about that surveillance tape. Frankly, I think he was asked a couple of questions about it, and he didn't go into the contents of it. I think he just talked about the fact that he pulled the surveillance tapes, and that it included, among the videos that he pulled, was the June 7th surveillance. So there's no prejudice here, and even if the defense had been told more specific information about this, I don't think it would have changed anything in terms of, from the defense's point of view, and I don't believe that there was any cross-examination of Mr. Barbarak, and I don't see how that would have been any different if there had been more specific information. So for all those reasons, the request to strike is denied. All right, is there anything else we need to talk about before we adjourn? Anything on behalf of the prosecution? Anything on behalf of the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Brady?
Thank you. It's my understanding that Dr. Fenton will be testifying later this week, and I anticipate moving to admit some exhibits. I believe the prosecution will object to these exhibits, and they're several pages in length, so I wanted to give them to the court to review before Dr. Fenton gets here.
All right.
If I can
And-
approach, I'll give a copy to the prosecution and a copy to the court.
Please, any objection?
No, Your Honor.
And what's the people's objection, or have you seen the exhibits? Do you know which exhibits these are, Mr. Bruckler?
I think I do, Your Honor, from an email exchange I had with Miss Brady, but I'm just putting my eyes on them right now.
Thank you. Are you anticipating that Dr. Fenton will testify tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
All right, are you anticipating that he will be in the morning or afternoon?
Your Honor, best guess is in the morning, whether it's before or after the morning break. I cannot say, just based on what happens with cross-examination or whatnot.
All right, do you want to tell me what objections you have, or do you want to wait until tomorrow morning?
Your Honor, as a preliminary matter, I'd say that I object to these on the grounds that they are going to be cumulative to the testimony that's provided, as well as hearsay.
Okay. And do you want to respond to those two objections?
Judge, regarding hearsay, I would say that they're business records, and so we intend to lay the foundation for business records, and I don't think it'll be cumulative any more than to lay the foundation and have her testify about them.
Okay, I'll take a look at them with the those objections and responses in mind. Is there anything else on behalf of the defense?
Your Honor, may we approach about one of the issues we spoke about at the bench earlier
Yes.
today?
All right, folks, thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. The court will be in recess.
If I come up with something to provide additional argument about these offered exhibits for tomorrow.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's fine. Okay, thank you.